Well, certainly conducting the operation is over, and we're just very pleased to now be able to start reporting the results of the census, filling in that new portrait of America. So that's what we're doing now. We're starting to release the data to the states, and even more information that will come out later this year and for the next 2 years, actually.
There's always tinkering that goes on. What did you do between 2000 and 2010 to change the act of taking a census that worked?
Well, we did a number of things. We certainly had a communications and outreach effort that was very extensive. We had more than 250,000 partners that joined us in our effort. Your piece there mentioned the bilingual questionnaire. We advertised in 28 languages. We also did operational things, for example, mail a reminder postcard to ask the public to mail back their questionnaire. In certain parts of the country, we mailed out replacement questionnaires. We mailed out about 40 million of them. So that's to boost participation. What we wanted to do was to get the public to return, take those few minutes to fill out the form and send it back. So that those are some of the things that we did. And naturally, there was technology used. The scanning process for scanning the forms, very sophisticated. We used that in 2000 as well. But nevertheless, the operation went well. As Secretary Locke said, on time and under budget, about $1.9 billion in savings. So,
are there things you tried, things that you thought would work in the design, that now need to be revisited and changed for 2020?
Well, we're constantly looking at how to make the census better. We actually conduct a separate survey to see how we did, and we'll report those results next year. But the planning for the 2020 census is underway. We're going to be looking at new technologies, different ways to respond to the census. So that is underway, and we want to make every census, the following census, as better than the last one. That's our effort.
Did they manage that this time, Professor?
We hope so, because if the numbers are in dispute, it lasts a whole decade and it can spawn a lot of litigation.
But doesn't it always head to court, one way or the other? Isn't there somebody who's going to sue?
Yes, that's probably true. But last time, in 2000, there was less litigation, particularly about undercount, than there had been in the previous decades. And for states like California and New York, where the money and the formula money is very, very important, and the redistricting, of course, is usually contentious, differences in undercount can be huge political problems and can affect not just the congressional redistricting, but state redistricting, and can affect local government redistricting, or can affect the amount of money that states or cities get from the federal government. So even though small errors, undercounts by 3 or 4%, which really, when you think of the massive effort that they have to undertake to collect these numbers, those are small differences, but those differences get magnified politically when you get down to either drawing lines or collecting money from the federal government.
It's extremely early in the cycle, granted, but is there anybody coming forward already to say, we was robbed?
I'm hearing people saying that. I think there are people that believe that, particularly since we don't have very good numbers about citizenship, that there's going to be endless disputes and perhaps endless pieces of litigation about how to actually tabulate the Latino population for the purposes of drawing lines. Do you count the voting age population, or do you try to figure out how many of the potential voters are citizens and how many are non-citizens, and therefore you can't really count on them to sustain enough votes to carry a particular seat. And that matters when you're trying to decide whether or not to have a majority Latino seat and whether it's going to have enough support to actually elect a candidate of choice. So yes, I think you're already hearing rumblings about this, and we could see an explosion of litigation over these matters.
Erica, what are you telling your readers about how it went and what the numbers say so far?
Well, right now what we've been doing as not only as El Diario, but with our sister papers is unfolding a portrait of each state. So we've been doing these multimedia bilingual reports on what the Latino population looks like in each state. And I think at this point we're still early in the process in terms of what are the implications of the numbers, et cetera. And of course we're looking at apportionment, et cetera. But what we're basically highlighting with these reports is what Latinos are bringing to each state. So one of the strongest threads, and we're doing these each week, that's very apparent is how Latinos are contributing to economic growth. So and while we as a community know this story, I think what you often see in mainstream English language media is a very narrow portrait of the community. It's either we're either menace or victim, as opposed to showing how in Philadelphia, Latino businesses have helped revitalize areas, or how businesses that have been created through the increased presence of Mexicans in New Jersey have helped create jobs, or how different trends, for example, how record shops in Texas are surviving despite other mega stores closing down because people are downloading. So I think it's interesting to sort of see the particular nuances for each community, state to state, and sort of and as these states get filled in, you sort of get a sense, you can not get a sense, but it's very apparent how Latinos are woven into actually sustaining local economies.
Mark, in the run-up to the census, there were attempts to insert new questions, question some of the underpinnings of the census. Do you count non-citizens? Do you count them in the same way? Taking a look at tinkering with the rules just before we rolled out this big effort.
Well, the process is about dividing up political power and money. So it's not a big surprise that people would like to tinker with the rules in some way that would benefit them. But I think actually with the census, there's not much room on the basic number, because the Constitution talks about people. So there's no way to constitutionally apportion the House of Representatives except on a total count. Now, the other issues of how you draw the lines internally in a state is a totally different issue. So I think the first question of how you divide up political power between the states, the Constitution's abundantly clear on it. The second question of how you internally draw lines, the Constitution is not abundantly clear on, and we're going to have lots of litigation over without a doubt.